Hello friends and welcome. I'm Helene and I thank you so much for being here with me today for my latest tutorial of the Mayflowers crochet scarf. This pattern is created by a series of increases and decreases that are built right into the stitches themselves. The effect resembles tulips with the pattern going up one side of the body and a lily of the valley with the pattern coming down the other side, both of which are Mayflowers. Here are the tulips as they begin to open up and the petals when they expand, and also we've got the stem and the leaves. And coming down the other side of the body, well then there are your lily of the valley with the top portion at the top with the base as they drop down, kind of in an upside down fashion, as well as these really pretty side border stitches that also resemble new blossoms and blooms that are starting to open up, along with post stitches that remind me of lattice work going up the side of a home or a little garden, and even a basket, say if you're outside picking flowers. And this looks equally as well with or without fringe, so I just give you a really easy self-edging border at both ends, so you can add fringe or leave it as is. It's really fun to work. I had a great time with it. There's enough changes to keep it really interesting, but the repeats are repeats of themselves, and it's easy to remember and to look back to see where you are, and it gives it some really nice texture. And I also have a written pattern available in my Etsy shop, and there will be photos included. Just this was my draft that I printed out, but the link for that is below, along with a timestamp reference guide you can refer back to at any time you need. And 3-page pattern, photos included, and I use a little bit larger print, separate everything out, put the repeats in bold, how to work the special stitches, pattern notes, and so forth, and the abbreviations. Everything is in there, broken down step by step, just as I take you through the tutorial. The lavender scarf I worked in Michael's Loops and Threads flex yarn. It's a number 4 medium weight, and this is about 6 inches wide and about 5.5 feet or so long, including the fringe. The sample I will be working up today, this was a Kristen Amdahl milk fiber yarn in a number 3 lightweight yarn. I absolutely love it. Some of the nicest yarn I've ever worked with, and unfortunately she is no longer able to carry her yarns, and if any of you out there know of where I can get some like this, please let me know. So I have a little bit left, just enough to work up a sample, and this one is just slightly more narrow, maybe by about like an inch or so, if that. And you will need 2 hook sizes. I do recommend going up 1 to 2 hook sizes from what's recommended on the ball band, and from that point then you go up 1 hook size larger for the chain, beginning chain. That's important to do that so it doesn't get over tightened, because sometimes work can tend to loosen up a little bit as you go. And also then 1 hook size down for the rest of the pattern, except for the post rows. We're going to go back to the larger of the 2. However, if you don't want to switch back and forth, you may instead just work them more loosely, and as we go, just making sure to bring those posts up nice and tall to the height of the full double crochet, and you should be just fine. And also 1 to 2 stitch markers and a row counter or something to keep track of your rows. Alright, go ahead, grab your stitch marker, your row counter, and the larger of your 2 hooks. As for reference, in this DK weight, I am using a J 6mm hook for the chain, and then dropping down to an I 5.5mm for the body of the work. And in the number 4 worsted, the Loops and Threads flex yarn, I did a chain in 6.5 millimeter K hook and the rest of the work in the J 6 millimeter. Now we are working in multiples of 8 plus 7. It's 8, 8, 8, 8, however many to your desired width, plus 7 more, which is for part of the side borders and the turning chain. Now I have found that working a chain of 23 total, which is 16 2 multiples of 8 plus 7 more equals 23, works really well for all the weights I mentioned, sport, DK, and medium worsted. So I showed you the 2 examples. I even tested out a couple of others in, say, Lion brand True Boo yarn. So the lighter the yarn, you will just get a little bit more narrow and lighter weight scarf, which is perfect going into the warmer months. So I am going to go ahead and work a chain of 16. My 2 multiples of 8, 8 plus 8, 16 plus 7 more. Okay, now I'm going to set the larger of the 2 hooks aside for a minute, alright? So now we are going to begin row 1, working into the back bumps. For this row only, we are going to place a half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook into the back bumps, and the first 2 skip chains do not count as a stitch. So 1 half double crochet, and this is where I recommend taking your stitch marker and placing it into that half double crochet, so when you come back working along the row, you do not accidentally work into the first chain 2. Now all you do is work 1 half double crochet in each remaining chain all the way across. Okay, half double crochet into the back bumps of each chain across. I'm back at the end of row 1, and you will have 2 less stitches from your beginning chain count. So if you began with 23 chains, you will now have 21 half double crochets. So if you have a second stitch marker, we're going to do this one more time with chain 2 and turn, and now we are on the wrong side of the work. Okay, and again the first 2 chains here do not count as a stitch. Now you're going to half double crochet in that same beginning stitch. Okay, place a stitch marker in that beginning half double crochet, and again for the same reason, not accidentally work in that chain 2 at the end. And then now just half double crochet in each remaining half double crochet all the way across. Here I am at the end of row 2, and now I'm going to work my last half double crochet into my last half double crochet from the previous row where my stitch marker is, and now can take it out of this side if you like. And now for row 3, we'll be working back on the right side. Now this time we're going to begin with our pattern, and that's just our simple little end border there. Okay, and now we're going to begin with row 3, so we will be back on the right side of our work, chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet here and throughout until we get to our last 2 finishing border rows. Alright, so turn your work, and we're going to work a 2 double crochet cluster stitch. You yarn over, insert your hook into the same beginning stitch, pull up a loop to the height of a double crochet. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. Now you're going to repeat that again, yarn over, insert your hook in the same beginning stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and now yarn over and pull through the last 3. Do not chain 1 after the cluster, as we often do with cluster stitches. Instead, we are going to skip that first half double crochet and double crochet now into the next, and place 1 double crochet in each remaining half double crochet across up to the last 2 half double crochets. All right, so double crochet across and stop when you get to your last 2, and I will meet you there. I'm at the end of row 3, my last 2 stitches. I'm going to take that stitch marker out. Just make sure you do not work into either of the end. Chain 2. Now we are going to skip the next half double crochet, and we are going to place a cluster and a half double crochet in the last. Alright, so again, yarn over, insert your hook into the last half double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and now yarn over, pull through all 3, and then we're going to place 1 half double crochet into that same end stitch. And why, you might ask, am I putting a half double crochet instead of a double crochet? If you take a look, the beginning chain 3 is already leaning and flush across the top into the cluster. When I put in a double crochet, it was too high and it caused the work to curve on the end, and so by putting a half double crochet in there instead, it keeps the stitches even with the clusters and the double crochets going across your work. And now to begin with row 4, we are going to begin with the smaller of the 2 hooks, alright, with a chain 3, which again counts as your first double crochet, and turn, and now create a cluster again into that beginning stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2, now repeat that again, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and now through all 3. Do not chain. Now, if you like, you can switch to the larger of the 2 hooks for the post stitches only, and then when you get to the end of the post rows, you switch back to the smaller of the 2. And again, you do not have to do that. You can use the smaller of the 2. You will just need to work them more loosely, not gaping and sloppy, but just more open and airy, and to bring those nice and tall to the height of a regular double crochet. And this is to keep the post stitches more in balance with the lace work that we have going on, in balance with the open and airiness and the weight, and also to keep the height even across. So now we're going to skip the cluster from the previous row, and you will make a post stitch, front post double crochet around the first double crochet, back post double crochet around the next double crochet. Be careful to hold on to that loop on your hook so you don't accidentally drop that on the post stitches. And this yarn's a little bit splitty, especially with the larger hooks. Okay, so now I'm just going to alternate back and forth, front post double crochet around the next, back post double crochet around the next, front post, and back post. And you repeat this all the way across up to your last 2 stitches, which is a cluster stitch, and the top of your chain 3, since that chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and I will meet you there. At the end of row 4 now, switch back to the smaller of your 2 hooks, if that's what you're doing, okay, to work the cluster. And as before, we are going to skip the next stitch, which is now the cluster stitch, and into the last, which is the top of your chain 3, work 1 cluster, going through the front and back loop through both loops of that chain, okay. And 1 half double crochet into that same chain, top of your turning chain 3. Okay, and that completes the end of row 4. Now for row 5, again back on the right side of the work, so our odd numbered rows 1, 3, 5, 7, right side of your work, even numbered rows 2, 4, 6, wrong side of your work. Alright, and again chain 3 and turn, cluster in that beginning half double crochet, okay. Now switch back to the larger of the 2, and you're only doing this for 2 rows. And if you're newer to post stitches, it's a good opportunity to practice them because they are only 2. 2 out of 7 rows, so it's not that many, or the switching back, okay? And now again we're going to skip the next stitch, which is the cluster, and we are going to work a front post double crochet around the back post double crochet now, and work a back post double crochet around the next, which is the front post double crochet, okay. And now front post double crochet around the back post double crochet around the front post double crochet around the back post, and that is your repeat across up to your last 2 stitches. And again, when you get to the end, you will switch back to your smaller hook. Okay, so I will meet you there. At the end of row 5, you should have finished with the front post double crochet before your last 2. Now I'm going to go back to my smaller hook, the I 5.5 millimeter, and again we are going to skip the next, which is the cluster, and work into the top of that turning chain 3 by placing a cluster, and 1 half double crochet. Now continue working with the smaller of the 2, and we are going to begin the lace work. Row 6 on the wrong side, this is an increase row, okay? So we're going to chain 3 as our first double crochet and turn, and again cluster in the same beginning half double crochet. Now we are going to chain 2, skip the next 2, you skip the cluster, skip the first post stitch, and then single crochet in the next, okay? And now we're going to chain 3, skip the next 2 post stitches, and place 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. Okay. Chain 3, skip the next 2, single crochet in the next, chain 3, skip the next 2, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2, chain 3, skip the next 2, place 1 single crochet in the next. Okay, and you work this across this repeat, chain 3, skip 2, 2 double crochets in the next, chain 3, skip 2, single crochet. That is your repeat. You work this up to your last 3 stitches this time, including the top of your turning chain as a stitch. And now at the end we will chain 2, and then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and in the last, the top of your turning chain, work on cluster stitch, and 1 half double crochet. And for row 6 you work chain 2 only at the beginning and the end, with your chain 3 in between your other stitches for your repeat across. Okay, and now row 7, for the right side of the work, this is a decrease row. And again, a chain 3 and turn, cluster in the beginning half double crochet. Now we are going to chain 1, skip the cluster and the next 2 chains, and then work 4 double crochets into the single crochet. Now we're going to chain 2, skip the next 3 chains, place 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 double crochets. Chain 2, skip the next 3 chains, and work 4 double crochets into that single crochet, and that is your repeat across. Okay, chain 2, skip the chains, 1 double crochet in each of these 2 double crochets, chain 2, place 4 double crochets, skip the chains, jump over to the single crochet, put your 4 double crochets in that single crochet, and that's your repeat up to your last 2 full stitches. And now, as we did at the beginning of this row with chaining 1 only, now we're going to chain 1 at the end, skipping the 2 chains and skipping the cluster, and then in the top of your chain 3 place 1 cluster, and 1 half double crochet. Okay, and that completes row 7. Now you're going to see your work just a little bit loose here, because our last row, our 3rd row of the lace work, will then bring that in together, and then that's also, by doing these increases, creates the leaves to have lift to them, and it creates dimension in your work. Alright, so that, if it looks a little bit loose in the stitch work, it's supposed to. Alright, so now moving on to row 8. This is our last decrease row for the 3-row repeat of the lace work. Alright, so again we're going to chain 3 and turn as always. We're on the wrong side of our work now, and place a cluster in the beginning half double crochet, and now we're going to chain 1 in between all the way across. So chain 1, skip the cluster the chain 1 and the first double crochet in the set of 4, and now work 1 double crochet in each of the next 2, the center 2 double crochets. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, now chain 1, skip the 2 chains and work 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 double crochets. Easy as that. Chain 1, jump over to the set of 4 double crochets, skip the first, double crochet into each of the next 2, the center 2 out of the 4, chain 1, skip the double crochet, the 2 chains, and work your 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. Okay, that's your repeat across. Oops. It's very slippery yarn too, but it's just so beautiful, so beautiful. Alright, again, the chain 1, jump over to the center 2 double crochets and place 1 double crochet in each. Here we are to the end already. Chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, skip the cluster, and work 1 cluster, and 1/2 double crochet in the last. And there you go. You see how that pulled that work back in, and that's what gives it the shape. So that is the end of row 8. For row 9, put in our double crochet separation row. We just chain 3 and turn back on the right side of the work, and in that same beginning half double, work your cluster. Oops. Okay, and now we are going to do 1 increased stitch, which will take us back to our original stitch count of row 1. So if you worked the beginning chain of 23, you would have had 21 half double crochets across the top, 21 stitches working through the post stitches, and then we did our increase and decreases. So now we need to add 1 more stitch back in to bring us back to our original 21 stitches of the first row. Alright, so now we're going to place 1 double crochet into the cluster for this row only. Okay, and we're going to work 1 double crochet in every chain and every stitch all the way across up to your last 2 stitches. All right, and then when you work across, I want you to work through the chain, through both loops, the front and back loop of the chain, and not around it. So I'm going to show you the difference. Okay, if you work around it, you may be tempted to do that. It doesn't look as neat and clean for number 1. It creates a large gap space in between the stitches, and it shrinks down the stitch you're working around to make it lower than the rest. So you wind up with gap spaces, uneven stitches across, and an uneven double crochet row that's going to droop down in the center because these stitches are lower than the rest, and it's going to tug the work in. And on many projects you can get away with that, but this is not one of them. It'll just cause the work to look misshapen. Alright, so go ahead and double crochet into and not around the chain, and every double crochet all the way across. Okay, 1 double crochet. There we go. Okay, and I will see you at the end. Here we are at the end of row 9. Make sure you've worked that last double crochet into the last chain, and now we are going to skip the next, which is the cluster, and into the last at the top of your turning chain 3, work 1 cluster, and 1 half double crochet. At the end of row 9, we are going to repeat this sequence one more time. That will be rows 6 through 9 and 4 and 5 one more time. 6 through 9 are our 3 lace rows plus the double crochet row. 4 and 5 are our 2 post rows, and then the repeats progress from there. You work those to your desired length, then finish with the border, add fringe if you like, or leave it as is. But let's go ahead and complete this beginning kind of setup sequence, if you will. Okay? And since we are repeating now the lace work, stay with your same smaller of the 2 hooks, and these are rows 6 through 9. Alright, so again, you chain 3 and turn as your first double, work the cluster in the beginning, half double, okay, you chain 2, okay, skip the next 2, the cluster and the first double crochet, and you single crochet in the next. This is the one where you have your 2 chains at the beginning and the end, and your 3 chains in between each repeat. Okay, so now you will chain 3, skip 2, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2, chain 3, skip 2, single crochet in the next. That's your repeat. Chain 3, skip 2, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2, chain 3, skip 2, single crochet in the next, leaves you with 3 stitches at the end, including the top of your chain 3, and I will meet you there. At the end of row 6, which works up very quickly, and now at the end, remember we chain 2, we're going to skip the next 2 on this row, and at the end, the top of your turning chain 3, you work your cluster and your half double crochet just as we have been. Okay, and your half double. Okay, so that's row 6 again. Now row 7, chain 3 and turn, cluster, chain 1, jump over to the single crochet, and that's where you place your 4 double crochets. Okay. Now you chain 2 in between. So on the second row of the lace, you chain 1 at each end and then 2 in between, and then now you jump over to the 2 double crochets and place 1 double crochet in each of those 2. That's it. Chain 2, 4 double crochets in the single, chain 2, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2, chain 2, 4 double crochets in the single, and I will meet you there. At the end of our repeat row 7, now again you chain 1 at the end, skip those 2 chains, skip the cluster, and in the top of your turning chain 3, place 1 cluster and 1 half double crochet. Alright, and now for row 8, which will be on the wrong side of the work, and that is the 3rd row of our lace work. So as usual, chain 3 and turn, cluster in the beginning, half double, and now we chain 1 in between each sequence, all the way across on that third row. So then you skip the cluster, the chain, and the first double crochet. This is where you put 1 double crochet in each of the next 2, which are the center of your set of 4 double crochets. Okay. Chain 1, jump over to the next 2 double crochet and place 1 double crochet in each of those. Alright, again, chain 1, 1 double crochet in the center, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 1 double crochet in each, chain 1, double crochet in each of the center 2 double crochets, and I will meet you at the end of row 8. I am at the end of row 8. I have worked the 2 center double crochets into the last sequence, the set of 4 from the row below. Now chain 1, skip that last double crochet, the chain, the cluster, and work into the top of your chain 3 with your cluster and half double. So now for row 9 again. Already, this is where we work the double crochet row across, and add in 1 more increased stitch. Alright, so chain 3 and turn, cluster into your beginning half double crochet. Alright, and we place 1 double crochet into the next, into that cluster, and that is our increased stitch to get back to our original stitch count. And this is where you work through into every chain, not around, and double crochet across up to the last 2 stitches. Okay, every chain, into every chain, and every double crochet. Okay, I will see you across at the end. Make sure you work into that last chain, and I'll meet you right there. Okay, at the end of row 9, back on the right side of the work, I've worked into that last chain, and then now we skip the next stitch, which is the cluster, and in the top of your chain 3, place 1 cluster and your half double crochet. And if you are ever in doubt, this is an easy pattern to look at to see what comes before, what comes after. Okay, so here we have now, we started with the post stitches. We have 1 set of our lace work separated by the row of double crochet, and another set of lace work, and now with the double crochet, which sets us up for rows 4 and 5, our 2 post stitch rows. Alright, so row 4, which will take us to the wrong side, you start with the smaller of the 2 with your chain 3, turn and place a cluster in that beginning half double crochet. And now you either work a little more loosely and taller for those post stitches, or you switch to the larger of the 2, skipping the next stitch, which is your cluster, and work a front post double crochet around the next, back post double crochet around the next. And that is what you alternate all the way across. Front post double crochet followed by a back post double crochet all the way across, ending with a front post double crochet in your last stitch. And I will meet you at the end of row 4. I am back at the end of row 4, the first of the 2 post stitch rows. I finished with the front post double crochet. I have my last 2 stitches, the cluster and the top of the turning chain 3. So now I'm switching back to the smaller of the 2 hooks, my eye hook, for the last 2. I will skip the next, which is the cluster, and I will place my usual cluster and half double crochet in the last, which is the top of our turning chain 3. Okay, and to begin row 5, back to the right side of the work, our second post stitch row, your usual chain 3 and turn, and cluster with the smaller of the two. So you're always working the clusters and beginning stitches and end stitches at both ends with the smaller of the two hooks. You're doing the posts only in the larger of the two. Okay, so again, skip the cluster, work a front post, double crochet around the back post, double crochet from the row below, and now back post, double crochet around the front post. Okay, ending with a front post, double crochet around the last post stitch, and I will meet you there with 2 stitches left. And now at the end of row 5, our second post stitch row, I've finished my last with the front post double crochet, switching back now to my smaller hook of the two, skipping the next, which is the cluster and half double crochet in the last. And now this brings us to our repeat sequence. I've panned out a little bit now so you can see the repeat rows at a glance. So our repeat sequence from this point forward are rows 6 through 9 twice. Alright, so you've got 6, 7, and 8, the 3 lace rows, 9 your double crochet, 6, 7, and 8, and then 9 your double crochet, and then you work rows 4 and 5, your 2 post stitch rows one time. So now I'm going to show you how we work back to the very easy half double crochet row, and again you can grab your stitch markers if you need them, and then these are worked in your just regular hook size, the smaller of the two. Chain 2 and turn, and you will be now on the wrong side of the work, and we're going to begin our row count now with row 1 for the border. Alright, it takes us to the wrong side, so then when we finish our second row 2, we will be back on the right side. So again, the first chain 2 do not count as a stitch as they did at the beginning, and a half double crochet in the first, pop your stitch marker into that half double crochet, and work 1 half double crochet in the next, which is the cluster, and in each stitch all the way across, including the cluster at the end this time, and the top of your turning chain from the previous row. And this will give you the same stitch count as you had at the very beginning of row 1 from the other end. And in my case, I had 21 half double crochets, and that is what I should have now. I will meet you at the end of row 1 of our border. At the end of row 1, I'm going to go ahead and work into the cluster 1 half double crochet and into the top of my turning chain 3 from the previous post stitch row. Okay, and now again, row 2 of our border, the second and final row, chain 2 and turn, does not count as a stitch, half double crochet in that beginning half double crochet, and I suggest going ahead and putting a stitch marker here in case you want to add fringe, so you will know where your full stitches are at each end and not accidentally work into that beginning chain 2. And then this one again, you just simply work 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet all the way across, including the last stitch with the stitch marker. Okay. And I will see you at the end and give you my suggested placement for fringe. At the end of row 2 of our border, one more stitch to go, and I'm going to leave my, there's my half double crochet in the last, I'm going to leave my stitch marker in the end of that chain 2 just to mark that spot. You yarn over, fasten off. I'm not going to cut my yarn here since I'd like to reuse this for something else, what little bit of this delightful yarn that I have left. Okay, so that's that. And then as far as optional fringe, so I would start by putting your fringe at either end, however many strands you like. We have an odd number of stitches across, in my case 21, which is evenly divisible by 3. I would put fringe then in every third stitch going across. So you skip 2, fringe, skip 2, fringe, skip 2, fringe, and that's going to give you 7 sets of fringe all the way across, a nice odd number. You will have your odd, your 7th in the center, and then 3 on either side of that. And one more thing, depending on the yarn that you use, you may not need to block this at all, or maybe just ever so slightly, and it may take only very little. All I took was a spray bottle with warm water, and I lightly misted it. I laid it out on the counter, I shaped it nice and even, trimmed my fringe, I let it lay flat to dry, and that was all it took. Well, okay, my fiber friends, that wraps up another tutorial. Thank you as always for being here. I appreciate you so much for watching and helping support my channel, making my patterns. Please let me know if you do. I hope you have a great time making this. It's really a fun one. All right, well, take good care, everyone, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.